Many of you probably know the standard system of Star Wars regions, which is based on proximity to the galactic center. From coreward to rimward, these are the deep core, the core worlds, the colonies, the inner rim, the expansion region, the mid-rim, and the outer rim. But, as we discussed in our general overview of the galaxy several years ago, this region system isn't terribly useful when taking a more detailed look at the galaxy's cultures. And there's an alternative region system we detailed then that divides up the galaxy based on astropolitics and historical boundaries. By far the largest of those regions was the Slice, the heartland of galactic civilization. And on top of being the largest region in the galaxy, the Slice was also its most historically significant. It defined much of galactic history, and it played a key strategic role in all of the Republic's wars, except the Clone Wars, that is. In this video, we'll be examining why.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
The Slice was the region of the galaxy between the Polemian trade route and the Corellian run, excluding the small bit that lay within the core worlds. These two space lanes were the first major hyperspace routes charted by the early Galactic Republic, and for much of Republic history, the Galactic government's main priority was exploring and settling the vast region between them, the Slice. To understand the Slice, we first need to take a look at the various systems and subregions within it, and to do so, we're going to revisit that classical core-to-rim model we criticized earlier. The Slice was actually the one part of the galaxy where that whole classification scheme made sense, and the parts of those regions that lay within the Slice were typically what gave the regions as a whole their reputations. Most of the early colonies that gave the colony's region their name, for instance, were located in the Slice. Speaking of the colonies, let's start there. By the time of the Clone Wars, these worlds, among them Balmorra, Carida, Neimoidia, and Cato Neimoidia, were second only to the core worlds in terms of wealth and prestige. But, as their name suggests, they were the frontier of known space in the Republic's earliest days, the coreward tip of the Slice. Beyond the colonies, the inner rim was generally similar, if less wealthy. There was a ton of industry located here, plus a couple of allied regions. The inner rim and colonies, together with the core worlds, were sometimes classed together as the Greater Core during the final years of the Republic, and in the Slice especially, that grouping fit. That part of the Slice was the heartland of the Republic, unitary and uncomplicated for the most part. It was full of well-maintained hyperspace routes and populated systems, completely explored and generally safe for travel, something that can't be said for the part of the Slice immediately rimward. Past the inner rim was the expansion region, most of which was located in the Slice. This region had few hyperspace routes, as large swaths of it had been completely stripped of life and resources long ago. A part of this region, known as the exploitation region, was especially desolate, visible on most maps as empty space through which no notable hyperspace lanes ran. The rest of the expansion region, with the exception of the systems near the Corellian run, was generally poor and forgotten. The mid-rim portion of the Slice was more lively. Here, there were a ton of prominent civilizations close to the major hyperspace routes. In the Kashyyyk region, near the Polemian, there were the Wookiees, Trandoshans, Lantilians, Bims, Randonai, and Saurians, all fairly influential in their own ways. While closer to the Corellian run, you had the Laniks, the Bothans, the Aqualish, and the Faline. The region between these two pockets of activity was much less remarkable, with lots of resource worlds and forgotten colonies, as well as the coremost portion of Hutt space. The Hutts played a major role in the Slice. Their territory was located within it, after all. The outer rim portion of the Slice was the only part of the region with ill-explored parts, largely because of the Hutts, and Hutt space and its satellite sectors split the outer Slice in half. North of Hutt space was a corridor of prominent industrial worlds, as well as the Tyon Cluster, a politically powerful region of space with a long and proud history. On the other side of Hutt space, the outer Slice was mostly unpopulated at the time of the Clone Wars, mostly containing worlds like Tatooine. Now that we've got a good idea of what the slice contained, let's talk about its history. The slice grew in tandem with the Republic, and between 25,000 and 10,000 BBY, it was the main target of Republic exploration initiatives. With this long period of exploration came plenty of conflicts. The Republic's first war, the Taiwanese War, was technically fought over the slice, as most of it happened along the Polemian trade route. Almost all 17 of the Alsacan conflicts, the semi-civil wars that defined the Old Republic, happened over settlement rights in the slice, with the first sparked off over control of resource worlds in the expansion region. During the Republic's long Cold War with the Hutt Empire and its successor, the Hutt Cartel, there were innumerable skirmishes in the mid-rim portion of the slice over outlying colonies, and many of the Pius Dea Crusades took place in this same region. By 10,000 BBY, the slice was pretty much fully explored apart from the outer rim, and the borders of the Republic had been pushed out to meet those of Hutt space. But the slice still played a key role in most of the Republic's wars. With the exception of the Great Hyperspace War, all of the wars with the Sith had their most important campaigns in the slice. In the Great Sith War, the Krath rampaged across the entire region, trying to cripple the Republic by cutting the slice in half. In the Jedi Civil War, the Siths advanced towards the core worlds, cut right down the middle of the region, and the exact same thing happened in each of the Galactic Wars with the true Sith, as well as during the Mandalorian Wars. During the New Sith Wars, the Sith repeatedly tried to do the exact same thing, and the 7th Battle of Ruusan, the dramatic final battle of the war, happened within the region, and the Sith's aims in the battle were, yet again, to use Ruusan as a staging ground to push coreward. This isn't even a complete list either. Most of these wars saw multiple slice campaigns. So, why was the slice such a common target? During the early wars of the Republic, the obvious answer was that it was where the Republic's active expansion and development were happening. But in the Sith Wars, it was a different story. The slice was always a priority target for two reasons. Firstly, it contained the bulk of the Republic's industrial base, but secondly, it was the best route into the core during the Old Republic era. In the Mandalorian Wars, the Jedi Civil War, the Galactic Wars, and the New Sith Wars, the road to the core worlds ran through the slice, which had many potential invasion corridors to choose from. This goes a long way to explaining the region's reduced significance in the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars, of course, consumed the entire galaxy, and the slice wasn't spared. The Separatists had territory within it, with one enclave along the Corellian Run and another at the end of the Polemian. The latter chunk of space cut as far coreward through the slice as the expansion region, and it contained the Foundry of the Confederacy, the CIS's main industrial region, as well as the Confederacy's capital, Raxus Secundus. But nonetheless, most of the Clone Wars happened to the north or south of the slice, where most of the Confederacy's territory was located. There was never a dedicated theater of the war in the slice. Depending on how you draw the lines, the war in the slice was split between the Felucia Theater along the Polemian Run and the Siskine Theater along the Corellian Run, or it was split between the northern and southern theaters, with the two pockets of activity in the slice thoroughly disconnected. The war in the slice was also exceptionally one-sided. With the exception of the Battle of Kashyyyk and an early war campaign in the southern outer and mid-rim portions of the slice, nearly all of the conflicts in this region were either Republic offensives or Separatist counterattacks. Almost all of the Separatists' major offensives happened elsewhere, and unlike virtually every other rim-based power the Republic had ever fought a war with, the Confederacy never made an attempt to push through the slice to attack the core worlds. So why did the Clone Wars play out so differently? The answer is actually quite simple. The slice just wasn't as special anymore. Between the New Sith Wars and the Clone Wars, the Republic had done a lot of exploration, settlement, and development in the northern and southern portions of the Rim, the regions where most of Separatist space lay. These not only contained more industrial regions for the Republic to rely on and the Separatists to conquer, but they also contained more routes into the core worlds. Like the Republic's other rivals, the Confederacy made several attempts to attack the core worlds, but these attempts all came from the south, pushing up the Corellian trade spine or through the deep core. The Confederacy had better options than a campaign through the slice, and it took them. So, that's why the slice wasn't as important in the Clone Wars as it was in every other Republic war. But what do you think? Do you like these regional deep dives? Feel free to post your thoughts in the comments section below.